Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Real Talk with Ben podcast. I'm Ben, of course, but we are back after a few weeks. The last time we were here, we had Sis and Little Bro. I almost misspoke them. They were on this past time, and it was a great conversation with them. If you haven't checked that one out, go onto the YouTube, go back to any of the platforms that I'm on, and you can hear that conversation. They have a new album coming out, so check that out. It's going to be pretty cool. But today we are blessed, and you know, I was wondering who should I have on, and if you listened on Monday's the Baseline podcast episode, then you know that Jared was on there, and here he is again. So my brother Jared is on the Real Talk with Ben podcast. It kind of flashes me back a little bit to, the Bros Knows reunion. Just a little bit. Like, not too much. I mean, it's a little different. We're in different countries, but it's similar. And if no one knows what we're talking about, that's because
exactly.
we had a podcast for about 10 episodes for about 10 weeks before I left. Come to Hungary, and then it's never happened again. So there's 10 episodes out there. If you really want to go check them out, they're still up. So anyways, Jared, thank you for being on.
Sure.
Thank you for doing double duty. If people don't know, we're recording this basically back to back. So thank you for doing double duty. Josh appreciates you.
I'm sure he does. Most people should.
Oh boy, here we go. But as many of you know, Jared's my younger brother. We both grew up in Ohio, so on. We'll go from there. But Jared, some people don't even know you. They know me. They probably know you a little bit, but they don't know you that well. So my question for you is, first off, let's talk about your testimony, your life growing up, and then we'll kind of get into all the details of what you love to do and where you're going to be headed. So we're going to start out with, what is your testimony and what was life like growing up?
Sure. But first thing, Ben, if they don't know me, they should know me. Okay. I'm Jared, the better looking and more athletic, more talented younger brother. So if they don't know me, it's a shame on them. But All right. Well, we'll get going here. So you said, testimony. So, as Ben, you guys might know Ben, we grew up in a loving, godly Christian home. I was saved when I was, can't remember exactly. I want to say it was 5.
I do remember that day.
Yeah. And I was saved when I was 5, and, grew up all in the church, going to Sunday school, Awanas, Costumi, all that stuff. But I'd say I didn't really, I was saved, so I knew what it meant to be saved, but I wasn't baptized till I was in, maybe 7th grade. And so that's when I really put on the stepping pedal and just really went, wanting to live for Christ, after you get baptized. And so, that's when I really, really, committed full go, hey, it's time to live for Christ. I need to be baptized. I haven't been baptized. So God tells us to be baptized. And so, so I was like, so I'll do it. And I did that in 7th grade. And then all through high school, was in Costumi and got to grow there. But then, as you did, Ben, I went off to Cedarville and really grew my relationship with Christ there, as most people do, as it is Cedarville. So that's just a little snippet of my testimony.
And I will say that I remember him coming home the day he got saved. I remember it was after church. It's like after Sunday school or after church. And I remember him walking in, and then you end up calling Aunt Brenda. I was like the first person you called.
I think so, yeah.
If I remember right. And I remember because I was sitting on the living room floor with mom, because you were telling mom, and dad was there as well. But I know you were telling mom. So that's what I remember. It's crazy how I still remember that, but it's there. So, so, growing up in small town West Liberty, it has its pluses and its minuses, as we both know. Right. So, you accepted Christ. I know, and we'll get into your Cedarville journey. We'll get into all your high school and stuff like that, but
sure.
First off, how was your experience in schooling? It's like your early years, as if you don't know, if everyone doesn't know, and you haven't heard my testimony or anything like that I've shared, is our mom was both our kindergarten teacher, and then she also was a teacher during her whole career in school, which, as Jared and I both can attest, is a pro and a con in in many ways. Mom, we're not calling you out. We're just saying it's just a fact. When your parents' teacher, there's just those things. Jared, explain how your schooling experience was. I know obviously a lot of it, but I know you know more in detail. So what was it like going to school and one being a Christian in a secular community, but was okay with Christianity, I would
Hmm.
say. But then also with your mom being, in the same school.
Yeah. So, as you said, kindergarten teacher. So we both had her for kindergarten, and that was awesome, but also stunk because we couldn't call her mom.
That is true.
I'm sitting there and I'm like, "Hey,
True.
mom," and she's like, "No, it's Mrs. Bowden," and I'm like, okay, but you're my mom, so I'm gonna call you mom." And so we had to call her Mrs. Bowden, which is the worst thing ever.
Just
Uh,
hard.
but I mean, I guess she did get us through kindergarten and help us
That's
learn
true.
to get into elementary school. So I guess that was a plus. But then there's also a quick, really short story for kindergarten. I don't know
Yeah,
if I
of
told you.
course.
I might have told you this, but mom knows this because she's the one who got me in trouble. Well, actually, made me pull my card. So so me and my good friend, since he's been my friend since 3 years old, Levi Mail, you know, so yeah, we're over here playing, pistols, with our little handguns. And Levi makes a handgun under the table. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go big time and go over the table, like gangster style or something. And I'm just like, bam, bam. And then mom's like, Jared, you can't make handguns. And I'm like, go pull your card. And I'm like, mom, Mrs. Bowden, Levi just did it too. She's like, oh, I didn't see his. I'm like, oh. So if Levi ends up watching this, which I might tell him to, I'm like, yeah, so Levi got me in trouble. That was our friendship from here on out. But
Hey,
so that's a fun story.
yeah,
That's a fun story for elementary that I had.
the moments, the
No,
moments.
but it was good. Uh, I feel like elementary school. I mean, I made a lot of friends. So I had friends through elementary school, and then it transitioned to another group of friends when I got into like the middle school ages. So yeah, so that was that. I mean, I felt I had a good time at West Liberty. I'm glad. Uh,
Are you glad? Are you glad you
I,
went? Are you glad you went to public school over private school? Because me and you both get this question
that's
all the time.
yeah.
Me and you get this question all the time because
So going to
we went to church and
Cedarville,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, going to Cedarville and seeing people who came from private schools and then just homeschooled people, which hey, no offense to homeschoolers out there, but you need a little work. And but like having those people, and then you see like they're sheltered, private and homeschooled up until college. But if they go to a private college like Cedarville, they're still sheltered in
Yeah,
that
it's
bubble.
true. Yeah,
So like going to public school is nice because we weren't in a bubble. We were at public school. Ain't no
yeah,
bubble
yeah.
in public school unless you're
And
in your
ours,
own
and
little
our,
bubble.
but ours, we'll say though, for those of you that are out there that went to public school, okay, we'll say that ours was a very mediocre public school. I don't mean that in like a bad way. I mean that in the sense that it wasn't like it was a very
Sure.
conservative community, so there wasn't anything too crazy that we had to deal with. I
Yeah.
mean, you obviously went through something during your end of your schooling career that has affected you, I know, tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know if you wanted to touch on that just briefly. I know you don't want to go into too much, but just with everything that's going on in Texas, if you don't
Oh
know,
yeah, sure.
depending on when you're listening to this, there was a school shooting in Texas, and my
Mm.
brother has a little experience with that. His good friend Logan, and went through that as well. So could you
Yeah.
just touch on that, like how that's affected you, how that school experience has affected you here in the future?
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, praying for all those families
Yeah, of
devastated by
course.
the Texas shooting. That is absolutely
It's
terrible.
horrific.
And horrific. But yeah, so junior year of high school, I'll try to keep it short. Usually I tell like a longer
Yeah, I
story
know.
because
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like an amazing story.
yeah, yeah.
So I'll try to keep this a little shorter, but basically junior year of high school, West Liberty experienced something that I said would never happen at West Liberty,
We all said that.
this now reminds me that I'm never saying never again because
Yeah.
I guess anything can happen anywhere. So we had a school shooting my junior year of high school. So this is 2017. It was in January 20th, 2017. And yeah, so it was just just a normal day, and I actually had my algebra homework done for Mr. Cottrell's class, so I was really happy. I actually knew what I was doing. I was good at algebra anyway, so I had it done. Me and my friend Daniel, we were like so pumped, so we actually got it out, and then we went to the restroom because we'd always go to the restroom and talk and have a just joke about it while we're using the urinals, and but we saw somebody in the stall, and I did, and I was like, oh, somebody taking number two before classes start up, early morning. And then we come out, and so my best friend Logan, good friends since sixth grade, probably one of my best friends, who were moved in college. he goes in the bathroom to check his hair before a mock trial meet that they had later in that day. And the shooter, I'll name him because, he's been named. So Eli, who at the time, I wasn't friends with him at the time, but in 7th grade when he first came here, I was actually good friends with him. So it's kind of weird to see how this all transformed. But yeah, so Logan goes to the restroom and we hear 2 loud bangs. I won't shout it like I usually do when I tell the story, just because I don't want to deafen people's ears. But and we hear these 2 loud bangs, and we're like, oh, well, that was weird. It must be another, active shooter drill, because we'd have those occasionally to know what to do when there's a shooter in the building. And so, and Mr. Cottrell goes out and checks out the window, and all of a sudden, Mr. Thomas is walking out of the bathroom and yelling. I won't repeat what he says, but he's yelling that there's a school shooter in the bathroom. And so, and I honestly, even after Mr. Cottrell came back in, I didn't really believe it. I was like, nah, this is just a drill, another drill, So we're all in the back of the room, and we got hear 2 more loud bangs, and then that's when I was like, oh, okay, so this is like actually happening. Like, shoot, what do we do? All the girls are screaming and crying, and I was in shock. I was like, what in the world is going on? So we kick out the window, and this is just my side of the story. Logan obviously has a whole different side, which is absolutely great testimony about God's forgiveness and everything. But and we kick out the window. We run through cornfields up to a farm. I want to say it was the Crable farm. I'm not for sure.
It's got to be that one. I mean, that's the one I could think of.
I believe it was. And so I ran, and I still have those shoes from that day. They aren't muddy anymore, but they were covered in mud after that. And I still have those shoes from the day. I'm not getting rid of them. And so, yeah, so we had a school shooting, and, Logan, he was the only guy to get shot, but he still survived, still suffers with pellets being in his body, and they have to check his lead every now and then, lead levels. But probably is definitely the scariest moment of my life. I hope I'll never, ever go through something as scary as that. But yeah, it's definitely something that really solidified me wanting to grow even more in my faith. Like, oh shoot, that's a wake up call for the school and anybody else. God woke us up right there. So yeah, that was scary. Definitely scariest thing that ever happened to me. Especially since, and I mentioned we were in the restroom. Me and my friend Daniel, we were in the restroom 5 minutes before all this went down. So it could have easily, scarily easily been me or Dan. But that's just a little snippet of it.
And I remember that day too, because I was in college at the time. Jared was in school. I was in college. I was a junior, I believe at the time.
You've been a sophomore.
And I found out, and the thing is, I found out about it. It was through Jamie Dodane. So if you all listen to the Baseline podcast, we had her on a few weeks ago. She had texted me and said, hey, West Liberty had a school shooter. And at the time, she's like, someone's been killed, because there's a lot of misinformation that was going around.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I had no idea what was happening. And so I, panically called mom, and I couldn't get a hold of mom. I couldn't get a hold of dad. Couldn't get a hold of you. So I was like, what is happening? What is going on? I just left, and I kind of went to Coach Estep's office, and I just said, I need to make some calls. Can I make them here? And I remember getting a hold of dad, and he's like, yeah, everything's going to be fine. Jared's okay or whatever. Which made it, so I tell that, actually, believe it or not, I shared this at chapel on Friday at school. I shared this past Friday about forgiveness and what Logan has went through, a little bit of snippet about what he's went through and how we need to have forgiveness. And I think that kind of encapsulates what you've been through too, is just being able to forgive and to love even more. And whenever we're struggling, we realize that we need to forgive even more than we realize. But I want to kind of shift. Obviously, we're gonna touch base on this again, because this and the church thing kind of goes together. We'll touch base on this again, but I want to kind of move into, because during this time, during your high school time, during your middle school, and Logan, speaking of Logan, you guys have this love for soccer, this just overwhelming love for soccer. Or if you're here in Hungary, footsie. If you're here in Hungary and you're watching, but you have this love for soccer, and I know the story, obviously, because being your brother and everything, but where did the love for soccer come from? Who's the one that kind of put it through to you? And what did you really love about it the first time you touched the soccer ball?
Yeah. Well, so originally, as you know, because you did this, we just played pretty much baseball, and until we could eligible to be in the Pee Wee football league
Yeah.
that we had, which I think started in like fifth grade or something like that. So I'm in fourth grade. I'm playing baseball, and now I didn't really enjoy baseball.
We
It was
were
just
both
a
we were
sport.
both better baseball players than I think we realize. I think
Yeah, but like
definitely
I
that's
just
better our sport at the time.
yeah. I just didn't really enjoy it. So I was like, I don't really like this, and I was honestly just planning on playing football like you did, and basketball. Obviously, we played, which I also didn't enjoy. But I realized I probably could have been really good. But so when we're coming along, and I don't remember what conversation led this up, but it was when I was in fourth grade, or I was going into fourth grade or something like that, and our cousin Bradley comes up and is like, hey, you should. I think we were just over at his house. He's like, hey, you should play soccer instead of football. And I was like, well, I mean, all right, I guess I could give it a shot. I'm kind of a tweener little kid, probably get demolished on the football field. So, I'll give it a shot, And so it was like, and in fourth grade, you don't really understand the whole logistics of soccer. So it was like, when you first started talking about, you're like, oh, this is just a fun game I can play with my friends.
Yeah.
It's not like it's a huge, like I wouldn't say I was in complete love with it when I first played it, because I was just,
Yeah.
it was just another sport I played because we're a sports family. And so so I was playing it, and then I just kept with it, and in the middle school, sixth grade, we had our and then when I was in sixth grade, so they have like it's 12U here.
Mhm.
I don't know if people were living in Hungary. I don't know if they know.
Well,
what that means, but,
they're playing professional clubs.
well,
By then.
yes, of course,
They're already
yes,
on club teams. So
because they're which I wish I was, but so it's 12U here, and so like that means if you're 12, I think it's 11 or 12, you play on the 12U team. Well, I was in sixth grade. I was 12 years old in sixth grade, and so I was planning to play the 12U team, and then because like how they do, like they like draft the rosters or something like that, the coaches
Yeah.
or whatever, and
kind of like
they're looking
baseball.
at the
It's kind of
sixth
like a baseball
graders.
team.
Yeah, and so like in sixth grade, sometimes the 12-year-olds are eligible to play in the 14U, so it's like the seventh and eighth grade league, right before you get into high school. And I got offered to play on the team, and I was like, well, why not? This is awesome. I get to play with the big boys and the big girls. This is these older people. I get to see what I'm made of. And then after that, I just fell in love. I was like, I can't just stop playing this game. I was good at it. I could dribble well. I could shoot. I could pass. I could do everything you needed to do in soccer. So really, I have my cousin Bradley to thank for that, because without him saying that, I would have just been a football player, which Dad would have absolutely loved, because he thought I would have been really good.
I mean, I would love to get Brad on this podcast, but I don't think Brad would ever sit down for 40 minutes and talk to me about life. He's got farming.
But yeah, so I that's how I got into it, I just stuck with it.
I would say though too, like you're definitely not the best soccer player in our extended family by any means.
Oh yeah, no.
Like Brad, if you don't know our family, like our cousin Brad, like he'll never tell you he's like the greatest soccer player in West Liberty history, but he legit overall over 4 years is the greatest soccer player in West Liberty Salem history. He'll never tell you that. Like if you ask him, he'll be like, "Nah, there's guys better than me." I'm like, "But yeah, but if you look at some of the season numbers he put up, it's pretty good." And I think if he didn't end up going farming, he could have went some ways playing soccer. That's for sure.
For sure.
But we speak of soccer, and you played that all the way up through high school. And of course, even when you're at Cedarville, you played some, just some intramurals and stuff like that. But what, through all your times playing soccer, from the time you were younger all the way up through high school, what was some of the lessons that you grabbed and you said, wow, like these are going to stick with me, whether that's from a teammate, whether that's from a coach, or just you in general being like, yeah, that's the way you go?
Yeah. Well, definitely. I mean, I think this is with any sport, obviously, but the idea of like teamwork, because soccer there's some sports where you can have an individual that just goes off and you win games, but soccer is, that's not like, soccer is, I think, the most team, maybe biased, but the most team driven sport. Because, you can have your star player, but he can't do anything without
baseball's
players
up there
around him.
too. Baseball's
Well,
up
yes,
there
of
too.
course. Yeah,
I think
baseball
and soccer are the two that are like very.
So it's a team driven sport. So I think the big lesson before when I got into soccer was like how to teamwork and like the whole collaboration idea. Working with others to complete a goal. whatever that may be. And it works in the real life and work life as well, like teamwork and how that helps you communicate well, because you have to communicate really well in soccer. For those who have played soccer who are listening to this, you have to communicate really well to even, to for a pass or a shot or something like that. You got to communicate to score goals and make sure you don't get the ball stolen. So I think teamwork is a big lesson. And then, this is probably more for when I was an older, getting up there. One of the older guys on the team is the leadership aspect, helping the young guys, develop and get used to high school soccer, because it's a completely different game when you get into high school. And just using that, and then, obviously gave me the life lesson of leadership, how to lead well, and lead, obviously, being Christian with a Christ mindset, you know. And so, yeah, I think the big ones were leadership and teamwork, collaboration, to achieve a goal, which was winning, obviously.
Yeah, and I think we, like you said, we can take that away. I think Titus has said that. I think Aaron Lynn said that.
Yeah.
I think Josh has said that too. When I talked to him, they all said the same thing of team sports, that kind of guiding perspective per se. So I know how much you love soccer, and obviously, if you listen to Monday's episode of the Baseline Podcast, we were able to talk some soccer, so you get to hear that side of things. If you go back and listen to that on the YouTube channel, or also just on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, but we're gonna shift from soccer, because we know you love soccer, and I know that, and I think most people that know you're in love with soccer. But there is even something more that, to be honest, happened later in life. I think later in your life. I think those of you that knew Jared and I growing up, if you knew that, Jared and I really love to just have fun. We love to joke. We love to be sarcastic, and being a part of those kind of things, we never really, like me doing radio, me doing a podcast, that never really came to until later in my life as well. But I always tell people that if Jared and I really realized the love we had for like talking and kind of that acting style of stuff, we would have done this a lot earlier in what we're doing now. And when I speak of acting, I just mentioned it, it's theater. So Jared loves theater. He surprised us all his senior year. I think all of us in our family on both sides got all surprised. But Jared, let's just talk from the beginning. Why theater, and what started it, and how that love kind of developed?
Well, ever since we went to the Lion King, and I think it was at the Schuster Center when we were little, that mom and dad took us to. I've always liked theater. I liked going to plays and musicals, and Disney had all the fun animated Disney movies that were out, and so I loved those and singing along. But it didn't really happen till senior year. I had a slot to fill on my schedule, and when I'm filling out my schedule, and I needed a class to take, and I was like, man, what do I take? And mom was always pushing me, like, oh, you should take choir. You're a good singer. You should take choir. I was like, oh, whatever. So I was like, no, might as well try it out. Senior year, soccer, it's my last hoorah for soccer. So I'm going to need something to do. So I was like, I'll just take up choir, take up some singing. So I did. So I joined choir, and then, musical season rolls around, and Mr. Henry, our choir director, phenomenal guy, one of the bigger influences on me in high school, even though I only had him for my senior year. And so senior year rolls around, and I am in choir, and so musical comes, and he's like, so if you're in choir, you have to be involved, whether it's in the show or making posters, selling tickets or whatnot. You have to be involved. And I was like, Mom was always telling me I should join the musical because I was a quote unquote good actor at home. I don't even know what that means. I'm an actor, and I don't even know what that means. I don't know what to say. So I was like, oh, sure, why not? What's it gonna hurt? And funny thing is, I went to Israel actually for 2 weeks, so I actually missed when everybody else was auditioning.
Yeah,
I had to pre-audition before everybody else. So I did, and then I got one of the leads. So I was like,
but you didn't have to talk.
But let me tell you, miming is not as easy as people think it is.
I do remember that though, because you were gone.
Yeah.
Because we had it was during Thanksgiving, because you were for that Thanksgiving, you were in Israel, and you FaceTime in for us. Talk to you. And I remember that because when he told us he wasn't going to have any, like once you got the part a little later on, we all just looked at each other like he doesn't really
Yeah.
talk, but he's a
Yeah.
main character. I'm very confused.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, our father, and Jared can test this, he'll share probably a little tidbit of that. Our father would laugh every single time he went. I think I went
Oh,
once or
yes.
twice. I can't remember. I might have went once. I can't remember because I was in college
I
at
don't
the
remember.
time.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But
Yeah.
I do remember it. I mean, it was Jared was brilliant, and I tell people that all the time. But my dad,
Thank
I
you.
think, overly thought that you were brilliant to the
Well,
point where it kind of
as he
got
does
annoying
all
after
the
a
time.
while,
Yeah. Well, as he always does with every show I'm in.
Yeah, I
But
know.
so that was my first big role, and I was really funny. I was already funny like before I was in the musical. So it's like it kind of just
Wow.
added to it.
Wow. Just,
Well,
wow. A
people
little
who
bit
listen
of,
to this, they know how
okay.
funny I am.
Okay.
But so I was like, and I did it, and I was like, oh. When I did it, I was like, why have I not done this ever
Mhm.
before? Like, why did I not do this in like fifth grade at like
Yeah.
community theater? Because I loved it. Um, and so yeah, I guess I could say mom influenced me, but she really didn't because she didn't push me. So I just say that Mr. Henry got me into theater because without Mr. Henry making choir people be involved in the musical, I would have never been involved in the musical
That is
or in
true.
theater in general.
That is
So
true.
I always say I think Mr. Henry,
The
obviously
thing
mom,
is
because I wouldn't have been
the
in
thing
choir
is
without
though,
mom. But
is you're like living with mom and dad right now. So when mom listens to
yeah,
this, which she does every single one, you know that she's going to say something to you within 3 seconds after
well,
she listens to it.
that's okay.
I'm just saying you're gonna have to deal with it. I'm
Oh
fine.
well. I
It's
mean,
just online.
I tell her this all the time, or whenever I tell a story to people.
So
So
so you love theater, and I know, and we'll
hmm
talk about this since we're going to talk about Cedarville next. It kind of goes. We'll not go too far into the Cedarville part of the theater, but
sure.
what was it about in that first show that really got you hooked, though? Like of that show specifically, was there a moment when you were
Yeah.
going through the process where you're like, "Man, I love this, and I want to keep doing this."
Yeah, so the very opening night, I mean, I was nervous as can be. Like I went through rehearsals and I was nervous first rehearsal. But then, I got accompanied everybody and we were one big family. And and I was like super nervous. But then when the curtain opened and the music started and the light came on me for my first scene, I I was like the nerves just went away, and I was like, oh, this is like meant for me. Like I don't know. I think, and then I think the big part, what really got me in love was one, I realized I was meant for this when I wasn't nervous anymore after the curtains opened, and then two, I think this is every actor's love for theater is just hearing the applause at the end with the audience and cheering everybody who comes out, whether they're a lead or just an encore member, just coming out and everybody just going crazy. And if it was a good show, everybody loved it and just telling you a good job. And that when we get into Cedarville, I'll say a little bit more about how my perspective has actually changed a little bit about why I love theater so much due to the recent show I just did. But I think just having an audience there and doing it in front of people, like a big amount of people, I think is just been what really drove me and made me fall in love with acting in general. So
What would you say is harder, playing a sport full time or acting full time? Like if you're talking about like prepping for a show from start to
mhm,
finish and then completing that show, or having a
yeah.
soccer season doing that fully, which one has been more
Um,
challenging?
oh, as challenging as I know professional and college athletes and sports are, theater by far was the hardest thing I've ever done. It takes so much, and it takes energy, obviously, in anything you do, but so much energy to go there every night. No matter how many shows you do, you have to memorize all those lines, and if you're in a musical, all the songs and lines, which I've been in both play and a musical, and the dances. You got to remember the
Mm-hmm.
dances, and I think I, athletic people, not gonna lie, they don't get it because they aren't in it. They just see it and they're like, wow, that was really good. But like once you're in it, you realize how difficult this job or extracurricular curricular if you're in school really is. It takes a lot of time out of your day, and I'd say it's more of a time commitment than when I was in a sport.
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost every day when I was in high school, every day from 3 till 6:30 sometimes or 7. Especially when dress rehearsal and tech week come into play. It's definitely do or die then. So
Yeah. Yeah, that is really true, and I've seen it too. For those of you that are doubting what he's saying, like it's impressive. I mean, even when I was at Cedarville before he was there, when I would go to plays, and I knew a lot of those people that were in it. You talk with them, and like they wouldn't want to talk to you leading up to the play. They would not want to talk to you leading up to the
Mm-mm.
musical. Very focused, just like an athlete. I remember before games, I didn't want people talking to me. I was very
Yeah.
focused on the game, ready to do it. Even when I wasn't playing, I was coaching. Same thing. I'd rather
Yeah.
just focus on what's got to be done. But
Mm-hmm.
now moving on to Cedarville, as we kind of this is the bigger
Yes.
chunk here. As many of you know, actually, my biggest and most popular YouTube video on my YouTube channel is Jared and I talking about way to survive as a freshman at Cedarville. If you don't know, I'll link it down below, and you can go check it out. It is
Well,
pretty impressive.
you know
Just
why
say it.
it's you know why it's the
Oh,
most
just
popular,
shut up.
right?
Just shut up. Don't even. Just shut up. Oh boy, yep. So,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
yeah, you'll get to
Uh-huh.
you'll get to see it below. So, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, just go to the Bowden Experience YouTube channel, go to videos, and just click the highest watched or the top rated. It's literally that up there. So it's like 1,600 views, which I know many people think it's not a lot, but that's a lot for me. So,
Mhm.
anyways, we're going to talk about Cedarville. I think many people know my story of Cedarville, and they know Josh's and a lot of the people I've talked to about Cedarville. But what brought you, or why did you decide to go to Cedarville? And did you believe at the time it was the right choice?
Yeah, so probably could say you did because anytime we'd visit you, I was like, oh, I'm just going to go to Cedarville. Mom went there, you went there. And I was like, well, why should I just not go there? And did I believe it was the right choice? Boy, I sure hoped it was the right choice because it was the only college I applied for. So
Which by the way,
better have been the right choice.
Which by the way, I tell my seniors this all the time. I tell them all the time, like, hey, you're supposed to have more than one choice, and then I'm sitting there going, man, I was the idiot that only had one
Nope.
choice. So I tell them, like, this is not what you do. You don't do what Mr. Bowden said.
I guess it was Cedarville or I don't know, acting school or something. I don't know, but I believed it was the right choice because that was the only choice it could be.
And I think
obviously God said it was. So.
Yeah, and for both of us, I think we just kind of knew, and we knew we'd get there one way or the other.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's the way it is. But describe your experience in like a sentence of your 4 years at Cedarville. Describe your experience in a sentence.
Oh boy, in a sentence. Honestly, well, yeah, that's in a sentence. It's
I dropped this on him too.
Hard,
he didn't
man.
know I was going to say that. But
yeah,
that's
difficult because
we'll come back to
say
it.
so much.
We'll come back to it at the end of the Cedarville talk.
Maybe I can sum up everything I said.
Yeah, exactly. So, but describe your time there. Like, what were some of the things you were involved with, and as you went through your 4 years at Cedarville?
Yeah. So, freshman and for people who don't know, when I first came in, I was undecided. I didn't know what I wanted to major in.
Which is okay, people. Which is honestly lifesaver. Unlike me,
it is totally worth it because I didn't have to switch my major 5 times before I knew what I wanted to do. Although we'll get this later on, I did regret not majoring in something, but we'll get that later on. So I'm majoring in communication. So freshman year, sophomore year, I want to say it was mainly just intramural sports. Getting involved in intramural sports. I was involved in a D group.
Hello.
What else? What?
Hello.
Oh yeah, we had the Resound radio show.
Which I remember its name.
No, I do. It's on. I do, but I cannot remember right now.
Oh, this hurts so bad. I know
it's so bad.
This hurts so bad.
No, because when I have some friends in broadcasting who are theater people, and I tell them I had a radio show, and I literally told them the radio show's name, and I can't.
It's called the Full Court Press.
That's right. Yep. Okay.
You just offended both Josh and I in one sentence.
Yeah. Wow. My bad. But yeah, so I had that freshman year. That was freshman year. And then freshman, sophomore year, it was just, intramural sports, D group, getting involved in Bro Sis. Especially sophomore year, we had a pretty tight, close group of us Bro Sis. We call ourselves the Broskis. We still have a group chat. And so we got pretty close with them our sophomore year. And then senior year, I still played intramural sports, but that's when I actually got involved in theater. Because as you know, COVID happened, so I didn't have half my sophomore year, which was totally stupid.
I was in Hungary at that point.
Yeah. So junior and senior year, I did. Senior year I didn't do any, but junior year I did intramural sports. Still just soccer, really. I think I did basketball once. I was still involved with Lawler and a D group. However, that's when theater really, really shot And I got in my first play, and I was astonished because I didn't think I could do it, because college is way harder, as in a sport, way harder than high school. So I was like, I ain't no way I can get in a show. I have like one show under my belt. So I got in it. I apparently knocked it out of the park. Um, People loved me. They literally still say they remember me from that show, even though we're like friends now. It's weird. And so that was when I got really got. And then senior year, boy, I mean, theater just took over. Which, by the way, senior year, for people who might not know, is just this like past year. So like
Yeah.
I recently graduated. So that, I mean, theater, I was in all three shows. I was involved in all three shows. So I mean, it was theater, and I lived off campus. So it was theater in the house. That was that was my senior year. That was what I was really involved in. I got in the communication um, uh, org, the Lambda Pi Eta. So that was kind of neat. Although I couldn't go to any meetings because theater. So yeah, so that was really my involvement. Was the big things: theater, intramural, and D groups, and Brosis Waller. So
And that's the one thing I love about Cedarville is that everyone can have their own experience. Everyone can be
yeah,
experiencing different things, but yet you all still are there for the same purpose. And in
yeah.
your 1,000 days, it can be just life transforming, which I know we'll talk
Mhm.
about in a second. But what was there a professor or is there a staff member that had a huge impact? You've talked about all these experiences. Was there a staff member? Was there a professor that you said, wow, like without them, I think my life would have been a little different during college?
There's actually two. One's my communication professor, Dr. Elliott. Probably the most loved communication professor. I mean, we love all of them, but the most loved. Everybody loves him. Sweetest professor. And without him, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed communication like I did, because he was like the start. My first two classes were with him in communication. And so I really got into it with him, and then he kind of helped me grow in my communication, and helped me my love for communication grow, which was what I was doing as my major. The second person was one of my theater professors slash director, Professor Stratton. Um, Without her, I would not be the actor I am right now. I told her this at the end of winter, and then the end of this semester when I was graduating. So like I could not do acting wise what I do without her helping me grow in the classes I took with her and being in one of her shows.
Mm.
So without her, I could not act how I act. Like I would not be the actor I am without taking her classes and having her guidance and being a good actor, um, towards glorifying Christ as well. Um, so yeah, those are the two professors that really impacted me throughout college.
Now, I didn't put this question in the sheet I gave you, but was there also like maybe a couple guys that kind of you got to build a relationship with throughout the time that maybe helped you, kind of like for me with
Hmm.
Jesse, but Jesters and Ryan and these kind of guys that
Oh
stuck
yeah,
with me? Are there a couple guys that stick out to you? They're like, man, these guys like really just they hit home for
yeah.
me.
Yeah. So, honestly, I mean, Logan,
Of
we've
course,
been
yeah,
best
yeah,
friends since sixth grade, but we were
yeah.
roommates our first 2 years of college. So I mean, obviously Logan. Um, but definitely Zach Leach. He was my CLC sophomore year.
Son of my former
Yes,
professor that
yes,
never really
yes.
liked me. So I mean, he
Yeah.
did, but
So
he didn't.
yeah, we got really close when he became CLC, and then he was RA our junior year, and then he was my roommate in our house. And so we got really tight, and obviously just like another brother to me. And then, honestly, pretty much everybody in that house that we had. Zach, Aaron, Jeff, John, and then Tyler. We when we were all super close. We were all pretty close, already going into the senior year. And then just getting the house, because we all lived in Mahler, the same units, and so then getting the house and just spending the whole year together really got us close. And I think those 4 or 5 guys are really the ones who really impacted me the most, and helped grow in relationship wise with those guys. I'm blessed to have had them by my side at Cedarville. So
And what would you say is how has the school had a impact on your life? How would you
Mhm.
say, as you've
Mm.
went through your 4 years, is that how the school has really impacted you as a person?
Yeah. Honestly, I think just growing. It's like a cliche Cedarville answer, but it truly is growing. They grew me in Christ a lot more than I already was after high school going into college. And obviously, without Cedarville, Christ, where I am with Christ right now, probably wouldn't be there um, without Cedarville. So, being able to go to chapels every day, and
Mm.
then just the D groups, like I said, like I mentioned, I was in
Yeah.
D group. D groups are great, um, and so those are the big things. And the another cliche Cedarville answer, but it's so true. The whole Cedarville community aspect of
Yeah.
Cedarville. I think that it helps you grow as a believer. You have all these believers around you, and yeah, they call it a bubble, but I'm not gonna lie, it's an awesome bubble to be in.
Yeah.
And so I think that helped me grow in Christ as well, and just the people at Cedarville in general is what how Cedarville impacted me.
What would you say is, yeah, and I agree with you all those, by the way. But what would you say, like on kind of a countering to that in a sense, what would you say is some of the big lessons that you've learned that maybe you didn't realize when you were in high school or as you went
Mm.
through that college career that you're like, wow, I'm glad I learned that over my 4 years.
Yeah. Well, I think the big thing is, I mean, as I mentioned, my love for theater has grown since I first joined in high school and through college. It grew, and seeing the get it because all of our classes are taught in the
Yeah.
perspective, the Christ perspective, Christian,
Christian
realm, which
perspective.
is
Yeah.
yeah, Christian perspective. So and getting my theater classes taught in that perspective was wonderful because, I look because we learn, stuff about theater, and then you look in the world of today, and you're just like, oh my, like that. I am blessed to have had those classes and learning those lessons of what it means to lead um, with Christ, lead as Christ would lead, as my communication classes would talk about leadership and some of those things, just leading in a Christ manner, how He would lead,
Mm.
and showing that love. I think that's a big lesson. Also, is showing love to
Mm.
people. I've realized at Cedarville, some of the behind the scenes stuff that happens. It's like, we need to show love
Mm.
to everybody, no matter their beliefs or um, their sexual orientation, other things like that. We need to love on them, um, and even if what they do is wrong, still love on them and pray. And prayer is another big lesson I got because I didn't pray that much before I was in college, and in Cedarville, a lot of times we had those
Yeah.
prayer chapels, and I was like, yeah, yeah, prayer is a wonderful thing. It's one of the bigger lessons I also got out of Cedarville.
What would be one thing you would say to an incoming freshman coming to Cedarville, or maybe a student that's still like a sophomore, junior, senior,
Mhm.
as you've left? What is the one thing you would like to say to them?
Uh, I I think every senior probably says this to every freshman ever, but get involved.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time. As I have just realized over the past 3 weeks from graduating, that it goes way too fast just to sit there and not be involved with
Yeah.
anybody, have no friends, make as many friends as you can. Even if you don't keep in touch with all of them, you won't regret making friends at Cedarville.
Yeah.
And I think because I made a ton of friends at Cedarville, I'm trying to keep in touch with all of them, but
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing is get involved with things that you love, or try new things.
Yeah.
Like not necessarily that theater was a new thing, but I tried it in college, and if I wouldn't have the I'm not gonna lie 60 plus friends I made through theater probably. And so I think that's a big um, big thing is just getting involved. Doing what you love, but in Cedarville, and get involved with
Yeah.
D groups, go to chapel, hang out with friends, get meals, get one-on-ones with people. And it's yeah, that's the biggest thing I can give somebody advice is get involved and enjoy the 4 years while you have them because goes like that.
Yep.
And next thing you know, boom, you're done and you're not going to go back to Cedarville. So,
Yeah, and what would you say is that you hope people remember you that have met you, that have gotten to know you at Cedarville? What do you hope people remember you for? And not saying it in any way, but just like really just what do you hope
yeah.
that when people think of Jared Bowden, they think of what?
Um, honestly, my love, uh, caring. I feel like I'm a very loving and caring person, and I care for others well. And I just want them to look back and like, man, I remember that Jared Bowden. He really, he prayed for me here and offered to get dinner with me here, or just talk to me at this time or something like that.
Mm.
And from the friends I've made, that I was able to show love to them and care for them, no matter what was happening or what we were talking about or anything like that. And that they'll remember I'm funny, obviously, which I think anybody will remember that. But I think that was the big thing, is just my caring side of me and loving on others.
Mm. And finally, what will you miss from your time
Oh
at
gosh,
Cedarville? What is one thing?
everything.
One
uh,
thing, not everything, but what is one main thing
okay.
you're gonna miss from your time
Um,
at Cedarville?
so I'm actually not going to go with the cliche community
Chapel.
answer
Oh, I
here.
thought you were gonna go chapel, but
No, or that. As much as I will miss that and the community, I have to go with theater.
mm,
As I mentioned, I got super involved my senior year with theater. I was in every show, and honestly, the family that I have built from that, um, I've been so blessed by it. And theater is a whole different world, and to have an educational theater at Cedarville has blessed me beyond words that I can say. I think I'll miss that most. As I mentioned earlier, my perspective has kind of changed on theater since doing it at Cedarville. Obviously, I enjoy it for the applause that you can get. People congratulating you on a good job. Putting on a good show. But we put on the show "The Beams Are Creaking," which is about the story about Dietrich Bonhoeffer. For those of you who don't know, look him up, um, and read his books. You will not regret it. Trust me, you will not regret it. And I think that changed my whole perspective on the reason I love theater is the storytelling. Being able to tell a story, especially something like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, impacted me and everybody else in that cast and crew in a whole new way that we didn't think. I mean, we might have thought it would have happened, but we didn't think it would happen like it did. And as we were sold out the whole second weekend, people couldn't get tickets. Um, and so I think I'm just going to miss theater. Being able to, and then, I can still do it, but it's Cedarville theater. It's not going to be the same if I
mm,
do theater somewhere
yeah.
else. And being not being able to story tell with that group of people, it really sucks, and I'm missing it already. But I think that's the big thing I'm going to really miss is theater and the storytelling with that group of people, because I love them so much, and truly I'm going to miss being on that stage with them every night.
Mm. Yeah, it's so true, and I know I've been there. I know what that feels like, and it is tough to say goodbye to something you really love and that you've gotten involved with, and that's the
Yeah,
hard part. But
yeah,
that means there's something new involved, new coming up. And so, Jared, we're going to finish up
oh
with
yeah.
here with this. What are you, first off, how have you seen God working here in the last few weeks? And what is your next journey, your next, set of steps that you're going to go on? You've left this chapter, like I was talking
Hmm.
about with, I think Aaron or Josh, like one chapter closes, another one starts, and now
Yeah.
you're in this new chapter. And what is this new chapter for you that you're going out and going out in faith too?
Sure. Yeah. So it kind of ties along with what I'm doing in the future. But I know when I graduated, I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't have a job yet, which is okay. I'm not super. I mean, I'm getting worried about it, but I'm not super worried about not having a job. It's okay. You get time to find something. And I still don't have a job, but what God has shown me and I mean, I would say this at Cedarville every year, but it's just He showed me just to trust Him. Believe in Him. Because maybe what I want isn't what He wants for me. And I've seen this through in the fall. I will be starting grad school at Regent University in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and getting my master's MA in theater. And it's all online, so I'm not going to live there, but unless a job pulls me that way. But I think just going with that is just God just telling me, hey, I got this worked out for you. Just trust me in what I'm doing, and we'll pave a path for you. But you gotta keep in line with me, because if I veer off in a wrong path, it's you're gonna mess everything up. And so I think that's the big thing, is just staying on that path and not veering off into what I want, and just keeping on that path. And I think the first step is to do this master's program at Regent for theater, which I am super excited about.
And so, yeah, so what would be, we'll finish up with this last question. What would be your ultimate goal here in the next, let's say 5-10 years? Where would you want to be? And where do you hope, if if that's what God would like you to be, what would you like to be doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if we're talking realistically, dreamingly, I would love to be on Broadway, in a movie, in TV shows, acting. That, dreaming wise, big time dream level, that is where I would love to be in 5 to 10 years. Maybe not a big time actor, but just acting on Broadway or in TV shows or movies, just having small parts. That would be phenomenal. Realistically, in 5 to 10 years, so this grad program took about a year and a half. And I said I would never be a teacher, but the only way I would be a teacher is if I was teaching theater.
Join the fam.
So
Join the
with
fam.
this MA in theater, I would need an MFA to be a college professor. So I couldn't do that unless I was an adjunct professor or a community college. But with this MA in theater, I can teach like high school drama classes, theater classes, like theater history classes, drama, acting, all that type of stuff in a high school. And so in 5 to 10 years, I think I would love it to be doing that, because I feel like theater in high schools is really going by the wayside, and not as many people do it, especially in the Midwest. Now in New York, obviously it's like the biggest thing ever, but here, it's not a huge thing. And then if I can bring some of that and a Christ-like mindset to that world of theater, I would just love to teach that. And then I could direct 2 to 3 plays a year, which would be even awesomer. Which it's a word. Don't look at me.
I wasn't going to say anything, but you brought it
up. But yeah, so I would love to be doing that in 5 to 10 years. But obviously, the major dream goal would be acting, or something along the lines of acting. So, yeah.
I think I didn't make you say to sum up your time at Cedarville, but I think you covered it. I think you covered it in everything.
I think we did. Yeah.
But so thank you, Jared, for sharing your story. And I think we all have an idea, and I think one thing I've learned from this, and I think we all can learn from this, is that, you truly never know where God's going to lead. But as long as you follow that path, it's going to be, eyes are going to be opened. And I think you've had enough swerves in your path that I think now you're able to, understand what God was doing. And I think you're able to see why he did it a certain way, or, why did soccer not work out, but theater is working out, or why Cedarville, why did I go into a major I didn't really know if I wanted to do? But I think in reality, we learned that, God always has the ultimate answer, and we just have to sit back and as I say, let him drive the car, and just get out when he says to get out. Right. And so, I just want to say thanks, Jared, for being on here, right? Twice, actually.
Yeah.
But also just thank you for your heart. And of course, I miss him, as you can tell. I've seen him once in the last 12 months or whatever. But but it's great to hear what God is doing in you, in your life. And so if you've enjoyed this personally, you that have been listening, then leave a thumbs up. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Who knows, if you want to see more of Jared on the channel, then let me know in the comments. If you want to see us bring back the Bros Know podcast, that's never out of the question. We've never said anything.
Everybody wants to see more of me. So.
I'm just saying, if you want it, let me know in the bottom. But also, if you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, make sure you favorite it, leave us a like, leave us a rating, so that way more people can listen to some incredible stories like Titus, like Aaron Lynn and Josh Burris and now Jared, and they can hear just different things that God is doing and what he is doing here in the future as well in the past. And so once again, I just want to say thank you all for listening. I couldn't be here without you guys. And I want you to remember that God is good and that he is always loving you. And in Jesus' name. Wow. I just about finished that up with a prayer. Yeah. Amen. No.
Amen.
Anyway, that is just funny. I'm sorry. But anyways, I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. And until next time, we'll see you.